Now, Your Excellency, one of the major issues that was discussed at this 19th non-aligned summit was the ongoing Israeli aggression in Gaza. How is the United Nations actively addressing and seeking solutions to this conflict? And also conflicts with humanitarian implications around the world. And how does the organization plan to enhance its effectiveness, adaptability, and responsiveness to contemporary global issues? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
Your name and the media house?
My name is Kanare Mugume from NBS TV Uganda. Particularly seeking for your response on conflict. Most of the times when the UN does respond on conflict, it does talk about Palestine or even Ukraine. There's so much conflicts happening in Africa, Central African Republic, Mozambique, Somalia, Burkina Faso and Mali, and many other countries, including the Sudan situation. What's your take on the conflicts happening in Africa, and what is NAM going to do to make sure that at least it takes a stand on some of these conflicts in Africa?
Thank you. And let's have a lady.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. My name is Rita Caroline Amanyire from Nexus Media. African countries have been pushing for permanent seats on the UN Security Council. However, updated efforts have not been successful. So I'm inquiring how far with granting this, or should we be hopeful that this will be granted? Thank you.
Your Excellency, possibly you can answer those three, then we can take three more.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. I think the first question related to specifically to the situation in Gaza and about what the UN, how does the UN plan to adapt itself to be more impactful in resolving complex global issues. The first thing I want to say is that the UN is not the problem. The UN is not the problem. The UN seeks to be, sometimes to lead, but always to support the solution. So let's get that out of the way. Let's get that clear. The UN is not an actor in creating problems for the international system. The UN was set up as a problem solver to facilitate dialogue, discussion, compromise, agreement, understanding that leads to resolutions of conflicts. The situation in Gaza is an extremely frustrating one. I think you know why. 25,000 innocent civilian lives lost. It's a very impressive number for the wrong reasons. It's impressive because it is woefully and unacceptably large that so many innocent people who are not themselves combatants should be the victims of the military action taking place in Gaza. And that is why the General Assembly, which I have the honor to lead, and I am here, I'm sitting here, but I'm the voice and the face of the General Assembly. And that General Assembly was swift in agreeing a resolution that called for, number one, the immediate return of all hostages as a consequence of the unacceptable action that was taken by Hamas on October 7th, the cessation of the violence in Gaza in order to save lives. At the time we had made that call, I think the death toll was less than, it was about 7,000 people, the majority of whom were in fact women and children, young children, innocent children. And the third thing was to insist that the authorities, the Israeli authorities, permit and facilitate access of humanitarian aid to those in Gaza who needed it. So that was maybe, if one could use the descriptor, 6,000 or 7,000 lives ago. Today, it's in excess of 25,000 lives. That number has more than multiplied itself 4 times. And that's precisely the reason why the General Assembly delivered this very strong message that the violence must come to an end, because we saw the danger and the risk that many more innocent lives would be lost in a situation that threatened to become a spiral of death and destruction, which is precisely what has happened. As it stands at the moment, with no immediate end in sight to the hostilities in Gaza, it's anyone's guess what can and might happen next.